Hello and welcome to SimCast, the higher education simulation podcast. My name's Tony Jeremy. I'm the academic lead for simulation-based education at UEA Norwich.
Hello everyone and welcome back to SimCast. My name's Lawrence Hill and I'm the chair of the simulation group in the School of Health Sciences at UEA Norwich.
Welcome back, Lawrence. It's been a while, isn't it? We're recording this. This isn't going out until November. We're recording this at the end of the summer break.
Yep.
And we've both been on leave for a bit, haven't we?
Yeah, it's nice to be back. I've been on study leave, writing up my professional doctorate and getting ready to submit at the end of September. So that's super exciting. And yeah, back in the saddle of SimCast.
So we've been busy with guests and lots of different topics, which have been out now. So we thought we'd change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
And we're going to do kind of a series of top fives.
Yes, exactly. We're going to do, over this episode and the next few episodes, we're going to do several top fives and we're going to follow our site model, which we advocate for planning and organising simulation. So we're going to talk about the top 5 settings, the top 5 pieces of information that are critical to simulation educators, top 5 considerations around team, and the top 5 pieces of equipment. We might even throw in a little top 5.
I think top 5 faux pas.
Top 5 faux pas.
Things that you can get wrong.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure lots of people will. And if anyone else has any other top 5s which you think we should do, stick it down in the comments below. We're always happy to oblige. And
oh, God, yeah. Then that would be great fun. So, yes. So that's the plan for this episode.
If you enjoyed the episode, please give us a like. Equally so, if you didn't like the episode, give us a dislike, but let us know why in the comments because we're always keen to improve. To keep up to date with all things Sim, subscribe to the channel and don't forget to check that notification bell. And SimCast is available on all popular streaming platforms.
So the rules of engagement for these top 5s were that we have basically just written it down in secret.
So I don't know yours, you don't know mine. Top 5 settings.
Yeah, top 5 settings for simulation. So we could have interpreted that in lots of different ways.
Yeah.
So we'll start with bottom, shall we? Start with number 5.
Okay. Yeah.
Or you want to start at the top?
Yeah. No.
Let's build up to number 1.
Do you want to do yours first? Do you want to do mine?
I'll go in.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, I don't mind, whatever you like. I've got my 5th place setting for simulation is virtual reality.
Oh, okay. Yeah, right.
So
why is that?
So I think the bottom line is for me is that virtual reality simulation is getting a lot of hype. It's getting a lot of traction and it seems to be kind of creating a movement under its own. But I'm not sure that I've seen enough evidence and had enough reassurance that it's a top quality learning environment.
Well, interestingly, any VR or augmented reality isn't on my list at all because I just thought of physical space.
There you go. See, I kind of went there because I think it's important we acknowledge that it is a setting in which simulation's taking place, but it's bottom of my list and it didn't make it onto yours. So what is your 5th place simulation setting? So
my 5th place simulation setting is a little bit cheeky because I've got something similar elsewhere on my list.
Okay.
But it's slightly different. I've put outside.
Outside?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Why have you gone for outside?
Because when we do simulation, we often think about having to book a physical space. But if you can do it in the outside, in nature, if you like,
yes.
It presents a whole new set of challenges to overcome in terms of simulation. My clinical background isn't set outside.
You'd be doing battlefield anesthesia.
Battlefield anesthesia, so my background's in operating theatre.
Yeah.
But when I have seen paramedics working outside in simulation, it's like they come to life because it's that extra authenticity of having to deal with your environment and your setting and your surroundings and the situation around you.
Yeah, it's. I can see why you'd want it in the list because in that setting, you don't have to imagine what's going on around you in order to be engaged in that fiction contract because you're there. You see the grass, you see the carpet, you can see that. Well, not the carpet because you're outside. Depends what kind of outdoor setting it is, but you can see it is there.
Yeah.
So I can see that.
And your paramedic students they do simulation in year 1 in combination with the local fire rescue service, don't they?
They do.
At their training centre, which is outside.
Yes,
and
it is.
It just really ups the ante.
It does. It is. Also very difficult to crash a car indoors.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed.
But yes, it does. It definitely, you get that atmosphere, you get exposed.
And they've done it in the snow before as well, haven't they? So
yeah, we've done that. With the first one we did was in the snow, and it was it was proper chilly. But it was good because it added an element that you wouldn't have been able to simulate.
Yeah, being cold.
Yeah, exactly. All right, what about your fourth place then? Where have you gone for in your
So again,
fourth
I've
place?
gone a little bit left field with my fourth place.
Okay.
I've gone doing simulation at a live conference.
Okay, interesting. So go on, explain that decision.
Well, I have seen simulation being demonstrated at a live conference before.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's got a really good and profound impact in terms of spreading that simulation message out there. Whenever you go to a conference, you always get a buzz of finding new things out, new techniques, that kind of thing. So doing simulation in an environment where other people can learn from it, not just as a learning event for learners, but for educators and things like that. I think it just adds an air of excitement to it.
So I hear you. I think it's a great setting for simulation to take place in. Whenever I've been at conferences where there's been live simulation, I've always felt more that it was a choreographed show.
Agreed.
Rather than something else, but that doesn't. It's still a simulation because there's still the observing learners are still participating in a fiction contract.
Yeah, I agree. It is done as a presentation. It's a different vehicle to present your findings or your method of delivery. But it's also good for generating ideas.
Yeah, absolutely, and discussion.
And I've done that before. I've gone to a conference and thought, that was great. I'd love to integrate something like that into simulation.
Ah, cool. I like it. I like your thinking.
What about your number 4?
So in fourth place for me, I've got immersive classrooms.
Okay.
Right. And so I think probably the reason that I've gone for that is because they represent something of a realistic environment, except a bit like virtual reality, you know that it's not real.
Yeah. That's so immersive is my number 3.
Ah, okay.
So I think we were on a similar sort of pecking order in terms of
so by immersive classroom, what I mean, and I think it's what you mean as well, is a kind of a 270-degree projection onto white walls that allows you to
blank canvas, and then an image, either a still image or more often a video, which is on a loop, projected, which in theory is a great idea and a concept because your blank canvas can be whatever you like it to be. Mm-hmm. But also there's this technology limitation.
Yeah.
Actually, you're in a dark room. It has to be dark for the the projectors to project onto the walls. So from time to time you get an eye full of bright projector.
You do. And also there's this, it's called an immersive classroom. And for me, there's almost a sense of like the Emperor's New Fiction contract.
Yeah.
Like, can you not see that you are in the back of in a hospital ward? Can you not see that we are outside? And for me, there's an element of, is this really authentic, or is it actually a bit of a white elephant?
So, but interestingly, you've put it above virtual reality.
I have, and the reason for that,
there's more fidelity to the fiction contract in an immersive classroom than it is in VR?
Potentially, yes, because you are much more likely to be interacting with real humans in real time. And that for
quite
me
often
is...
though, in quite a clinical central environment of that immersive classroom. Because otherwise you've got to bring loads of props and things in as well.
Yeah. So it's more, for me, it's more authentic, it's more humanistic, but it still requires a suspension of disbelief which stretches the imagination of most people to believe that it's real. Yeah.
Some of the good things about it, though, in comparison to perhaps a traditional simulation setting, is it's not just visual. Most immersive classrooms will have an element of sound as well.
Yes.
So you can up the ante by putting background noise, distraction, that kind of thing. You can even get olfactory packages for smell and smoke and those kind of things. So it is a sensory experience.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's in that realm of not quite right.
Yeah. But what I do like is that it has that element of play. Like it has that kind of fun element. It has that kind of like, we all know that it's not, realistic in that this is a 2-dimensional projection. But I think it adds something which may encourage people to engage in a fiction contract together as a group of learners rather than in VR where you're likely to be engaging in that simulation on your own more likely.
Also, importantly, when what you've just mentioned there about engaging together, I think immersive classrooms nearly always need to be coupled with some kind of recording system where other people can watch remotely. Otherwise, you lose the whole point of an immersive classroom, right?
Yes, unless part of the simulation is there is a crowd watching.
Yeah.
So that's my.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
one of the reasons mine is a little bit lower down the pecking order as well, and this is purely selfish, because we have an immersive classroom in our institution.
Yeah,
it never works properly when I turn it on.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's because there's always one screen that goes to blue screen of death.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's 100% user error. It's my problem, not someone else. Because whenever I get the technician in, they know the little sequence of buttons that they have to put on correctly
it's like that.
To get it right.
On.
Well, yeah. Okay, fine. I somehow managed to get that right.
On. But then if you took the on in the wrong order, then to be fair, it doesn't work.
So there is an element of getting it to work in the first place, which can make it frustrating.
No, that's fair. That's absolutely fair. And it does. And to be fair, any advantage that it does have is ruined by having one wall completely covered in blue. Yeah. That is, it can go to number 6.
Slightly ruins the fiction contract
just a tad. All right, so number 3 then. What's your number 3? Where have you gone to?
My number 3 was my immersive classroom.
Oh, okay.
What's yours?
Mine is in a simulation center.
Okay.
A generic teaching space, which is essentially a hard floor that you can use.
So a multi-purpose space.
A multi-purpose skills and simulation space.
Or even a teaching room.
Or even a teaching. Any room that offers you the physical space to do the activity that you want to do.
Yeah, okay. Fair point.
And the reason that I've centered that over the immersive classroom.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Like an institution will have invested money into an immersive classroom, and Lawrence is going, no, I'm happy with it.
And I think the reason for that is because with increasing technology, I think there is a risk of de-emphasizing the technique of simulation. Yeah. And I think when all you have is like a mannequin, and we'll do equipment at another time. When you have a mannequin, a group of learners,
you have to invest in the emotional buy-in.
Yeah, it's more. I don't know. Yeah, you have to invest in exactly what you just said. You have to commit to the concept of what's going on. And I think as a simulation educator, I quite enjoy the challenge of that. I enjoy the challenge of saying, right, okay, this is how I want it to feel, and I want you to imagine. Yeah. And
surroundings and props and equipment sometimes really help. They are really useful, but sometimes you don't need them.
No, and I think what they do offer is a kind of a blank canvas. Even if you're in an immersive classroom, you kind of have to be using it, which then you have to be forcing the engagement with that technology. Whereas there's something of the purist, I suppose, in me that says this could be quite good.
Yeah, it didn't even come onto my list. I considered it, but I've thought about it slightly differently. I thought if you just need a generic space or a classroom, you're really out of options when it comes to simulation space.
Okay,
so
fair enough. Yeah.
But I do understand what you're saying.
So where did you go for number 2 then?
Number 2, I went for a purpose-built simulation space.
Okay.
So this is the kind of environment.
So both of our number 2s are a purpose-built simulation space.
So this is the kind of environment which has been designed with simulation in mind. It will have some kind of realism in terms of its dedication to a realistic environment, whether that is a ward environment, an ED, a domestic setting. It's designed to look and feel like that environment.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think for all the reasons you've set out. That it is, and what those spaces tend to also offer is some flexibility within that space. Less flexibility, perhaps sometimes, than just like a generic skills space might have. But they quite often have built-in solutions. They might have the stuff like access to gloves and in the right places and bits and pieces that give you that sense of I am where I'm supposed to be for this simulation. And I think that helps. Definitely.
There's a physical element there that you feel like you're in the environment. So there's the believability, and then there's the practical element as well. Now, if you don't have one, it's not the end of the world. When I went to SimTech Live recently, the guys at Elevate Healthcare, they were demonstrating one of their mannequins, but they also had a portable medical data rail with gas supply and stuff in. And I thought, that's great. You could put that into your traditional or conventional space and just have that little extra bit of believability.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then, like you say, it just makes it have that degree of immediate kind of recognition that this is a sim space.
Also, anecdotally for me, learners do like being in those environments that are slightly more realistic. You can see the excitement goes up a little bit, and that element of, I guess, playing fun with simulation as well.
Yeah, and there's just that direct engagement with it. Actually, this is an area that I recognise from practice, so I can channel some of that practice experience that I've got into this environment.
Yeah. You have to get the sweet spot right though, because when they go to pull an alarm bell and it doesn't go off, there's always a little bit of oh, I kind of wanted to be a bit more real.
Yeah.
But then again, on the flip side, when your medical data rail and gas supply works because you've got an installed compressor, I can actually turn the oxygen on.
Exactly. Yeah. So okay, so we agree on that. Number 2, a dedicated sim center space that has a degree of realism built into it.
Our background is in higher education. If I was going to book a sim session, that's going to be probably my number 1 go-to.
Yeah, fair enough.
But number 2 on my list.
Yes. So number 1 then.
Yeah, I've got a feeling we both have
I reckon we have.
put the same thing down.
So if we were to play Hangman and I was to go for the letter I,
if it's first,
it would be first. So I think we agree then that in situ simulation is the kind of prime setting for simulation-based education.
You can't get more realistic than the actual setting in which the event would normally be taking place. It's got to be number 1 for me.
Yeah.
But it's not without its challenges.
No, and it's off, like you say, it's not. It has plenty of challenges, not least as we've discussed on a previous episode, issues to do with psychological safety and preparing that environment for transferring from being a clinical or a workplace to being a dedicated learning space.
Yeah, lots of potential dangers in terms of muddying the water between simulation and reality. Potential simulation equipment being accidentally used in a real patient. If it's on a ward setting, for example, you're likely to need to have very specific go and no-go criteria for whether you can run the simulation event in the first place. So high stakes, but the payoff is
high payoff. Difficult as well in terms of scalability.
Yeah.
So if you have a specific outcome that you need to try and achieve several times with multiple groups of learners, then it's perhaps not the ideal way of getting through that kind of way of running simulation.
But interesting, like sort of jumping onto a point you just made, it depends what your outcomes are.
Yeah.
So we're often looking at simulation in terms of education. If you're looking at simulation in terms of testing a real world environment, you can't do that in a simulation center. It has to be in an in situ setting, because it might be the actual physical layout, which might mean some of the diagnostics that you gain from that simulation come to the forefront of the debrief, what your findings, those kind of things.
Yeah, and I think that's probably true actually for a good number of this list. We could probably reorder our top 5s
depending on what
the outcomes are.
Yeah,
and that's, I think, a really important point. We never really specified what the intended outcome was. We just said, what's our top 5?
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to remember. And I imagine that's a point we're going to come back to.
I'm waiting for our university to actually start having outside as a bookable space.
Yeah,
It won't be far off for timetabling, will it?
So okay, so I think that's a pretty fair attempt at a top 5 settings. We've picked out a few curveballs, but then some synergy then as we've got kind of towards our favourite areas and preferred areas for running simulation in.
So if there's anything glaringly obvious that you think we've missed, pop it in the comments below. We'd be interested to hear what your favourite simulation settings or spaces are.
And in the next episode, we'll be talking about what we think are the most important pieces of information, the top 5 pieces of information about simulation.
That's a real blank canvas. We could go all over the place with that.
Yeah. So looking forward to that.
Thanks everyone for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the episode and we'll see you in the next one.
Bye for now.